of the Fall River Redevelopment Authority, Tuesday, December 22nd, 2021. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. That being said, I'd like to take a roll call of those people in attendance, starting with the board. Joe Marshall here.
Joan Medeiros here.
Ann Keen here.
And no other members. Also participating in this meeting are Sarah Page, Executive Director, and John Coughlin, Counsel for the board. If any of the other members do show up, they can just sign in and indicate who they are, but we have enough for a quorum to make some decisions.
Joe, just a reminder, because we're entirely Zoom, all of our votes need to be roll call today.
Okay, thank you for that, John. I appreciate it. Approval of the first item is the approval of a proposal for an appraisal for 45 Anawan Street. I'd like to entertain a vote to authorize me to execute the appraisal contract with Appraisal Company of New England and to obtain a quote and amend the contract to include appraisal of the solar component. Is there a vote to have me do that?
Actually, I have a question before we vote.
Sure.
Do we have any resolution around obtaining the information for the solar component from Liberty Utilities?
Well, I was trying to confirm with Brandon that he really didn't have everything he needed. He clarified what he needs.
Sarah, can you define who Brandon is?
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. Yeah, Brandon Churchy is of Churchy Appraisal, is the appraiser who has been really talking with us about the appraisal of the solar panels. We got information from Liberty and he said it wasn't adequate. I needed to find out what he was missing. And so I'm going to now ask Jim Sabra to try to track that down. And he, you know, Liberty sent a lot of information. It just isn't all that he needs.
Joan, do you have any further questions about that or?
Well, yes, because I'm
Okay.
somewhat under the impression that we're also looking at doing 2 appraisals with New England Appraisal.
Correct.
So why are we doing that now that we are aware of this solar issue? And why wouldn't we just hold to get a complete package and have New England Appraisal do it once? We know we're in a situation with Churchy that we have to go back to him.
Correct.
That we can't fix, but I'm not understanding why we're going to move forward with the second appraiser without having the complete package.
Well, because I didn't think that we necessarily needed to have the solar panels appraised twice by both appraisers. DHCD can't actually confirm that. But the more I talked with both of them and put it together with my conversation with DHCD, it seems that we need to have the solar panels appraised by both appraisers. And we have, when I sent out the proposal, it didn't include the solar piece. Neither of them
That's true.
included it. And they, well, part of it is that we're desperately trying to get this appraisal done. And I want the clock to start ticking because they said that they can do it in 6 weeks. He said that he needs a bunch of information to give me a quote for the solar piece and said that, you know, he can add that on. Both of them see it as a really separate thing from their appraisal. you're running all this data and it can be done completely separately. So I don't want to hold up moving ahead with the Appraisal Company of New England, waiting for more, I guess he wants information from Liberty Utilities before he gives us a quote for the appraisal of the solar panels. So I just don't want to hold things up.
I don't agree with paying for two appraisals, which is essentially what we're being asked to do. And I'm not convinced that we have this urgency to get the real estate appraisal done at this point.
Well, our PNS says that we're going to make a decision about the buildings coming down by the end of February. So if we want the appraisals to help us make that decision, we need it done, or we need to renegotiate the PNS, the amendment that we just signed. And I don't think that either of them see it as a really separate appraisal. Brandon said it was $2,000 to $3,000 to basically appraise this. Part of the issue is it's considered personal property. It's not considered actually part of the property, even though it gets sold with it. So I think the appraisal of it is just kind of an add-on to a serious real estate appraisal. So I don't think it will cost us more if we just add it on. And that's how both of them seem to see it.
That's not what you just said. You just said that Brandon Churchy told us that it'll be about another $2,000.
2 to 3.
Right. Yeah, but compared to what the appraisals themselves are costing, it's it's an add-on. It's not redoing the appraisal.
So based on a prior comment, am I to believe that we don't yet have a bid from New England Appraisal Company as to what this cost is going to be?
Not for the solar piece.
But yet Brandon is indicating, Joe Marshall here, Brandon's indicating that to add that piece would be 2,000 to 3,000 with him, correct?
I think it's more like 2,000, but
All right,
still it's not giving me the number.
So even though we can't assume anything, the Appraisal Company of New England, if they needed to do that piece, it shouldn't be considerably more than that.
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
All right.
I feel like we're, Appraisal Company of New England doesn't really want to do it. It's none of the appraisers seem to want to do the solar appraisal. It's complicated. It's they're really busy. He said, well, if you really need me to add that, we can add that. And I hoped that we could just use one appraisal and just have Brandon Churchy do it. And we could conceivably still do it that way and just get one appraisal of the solar panels.
A point of reference, though, we do not need 2 appraisals.
No, we need 2 appraisals of the property to meet DHCD. But what Maggie at DHCD told me is that that DHCD has no regulations on how appraisals are done, and that solar panels is not something she's heard about before, really. But she also said that you want to have your instructions to your appraiser consistent. So our instructions to both appraisers were consistent in our RFP to appraise the Liberty property, but neither of them included this issue of appraising the solar panels.
To interrupt, John, do you have an opinion on this at all? Not a
I think-
legal opinion, but an opinion.
Yeah, well, I think the right way to do it is to get two appraisals of the real estate. And I think both appraisals should include a supplement for the solar piece.
Okay,
Now, whether we hold everything until the solar piece is ready, or we go ahead with the real estate piece first, knowing we have to do that no matter what.
that's right.
I can go either way on that. It's just the clock keeps ticking, and if it takes them 2 months to get it back to us, if we wait another 2 months to start it, we'll be into May before we get it back, so.
John, is there anything we can do to expedite getting this information from Liberty?
Yeah, well, I talked at the last meeting, and I'll follow up with Sarah. What I talked about was Sarah, give me a list of what they're looking for, and I'll send it through Peter Salino and see if that helps. If you can just give me a one-page summary of what documents they're asking for, I'll forward that. And he seems to be in contact with their general counsel in-house, so I can't imagine that we can't get this information. How quickly we'll get it, I don't know. I mean, it's a bureaucracy over there, but
Right.
I don't see the harm in asking from as many different angles as possible.
So I have two items that Brandon said he needs, but I'm trying to confirm with him that he's looked at all the other information and that's all that he needs, so that we're asking one time.
Can I ask one question?
Please.
The appraisals, I know we need that before we purchase the property. We also discussed needing them so that we could decide what buildings to take down. Is it more that we want to get it done first to determine what buildings to take down?
Right,
Is that what we're in the more immediate need for, correct?
it is. So,
Um,
and the solar piece is totally irrelevant to that decision.
Right.
Right.
So my other question or statement or whatnot, someone that I know was at the Historic District Commission last night, and I guess Liberty appeared before them about demolishing buildings. So I don't know where we are in the process, if we've got to appear, if it's got to go through Historic Commission before we'll have approval of being able to take any of those buildings down. So I think if that's the case, that's usually a 6-month delay before any buildings come down. So I don't know if that factors into any of the appraisals here, or how fast we need to give an answer on that. But I
Now
just
that-
thought I'd bring that up as something that may factor into when we'll be able to determine what buildings are coming down.
Well, I don't think the 3 buildings we're considering taking down would be considered historic.
I don't think they are, but I think because they're in a historic area, that we may still have to, or they have to, because they're still the owner. But I do know that they appeared before him last night. So I don't know anything further than that, but I guess that they're starting to work on that piece of it. I know we had talked, about that the other week. So I don't know how quickly any buildings are actually going to come down, because that, I believe, is like a 6-month delay when you start to ask them about reviewing buildings. So
So last night's meeting, was that about this site?
Yes, I'm looking at the agenda. 45
Yeah.
Manawan.
yeah,
And it may be, and I'll check with Peter to follow up, because that's the first I've heard of that. It may
Yeah.
be that they may have just filed a notice to demolish the buildings to stop
Oh,
the 6
yeah.
months ticking.
yeah. So I think that
Um,
might have been the case to start the process, but I think it's usually a 6-month delay then that they have before anything can even come down.
Wow.
There is, and then don't forget, we have until the end of February, essentially March, to tell them which buildings.
Right.
Which means we're already 3 months out, and then they would have 3 months left to kind of get their contractors in place and everything else. But I'll check with Peter, Sarah, and I'll shoot you an email as to which buildings they put on notice, but obviously they're the ones who have to pull the demolition permit, not us.
Right.
They're the
Right.
owners.
See, I thought that that was in the waterfront arts district, but not a historic district. That's a historic district?
Apparently it is part of that. I
Joan,
don't
what is
know
the,
which one
Joan, were
it
you
is.
looking at the agenda? Joan, you were looking at the agenda
Yeah,
online?
all it
Does
is, all it says is 45 Anawan Street, Liberty Utilities.
Nothing
Yeah.
There's no
specific about,
detail.
no, okay. I'll check with Peter on that, sir.
Okay,
We have to have Johnny announce that he's here on the,
Yes.
Yeah,
Is he here?
I've been listening. I've been
Okay.
listening, but I had trouble getting on the other route, but I was listening.
All right, well, John Erickson is a member of the board, has joined the meeting. All right, so where are we now?
so I don't know if that factors into how soon we need the appraisal or not. I just
Ah.
wanted to say that we may be further down the road with being able to take anything down, so I don't know.
I think for me, it's the lag time of all of this. These
Yeah.
appraisals, may not see them for 2 months, and then we have to then meet and decide to give Liberty notice which ones we want to take down. And I'm okay if we want to hold this until January. I just think at some point, we know we need 2 real estate appraisals no matter what with DHCD. And we also need to make a decision about taking buildings down. And then we're gonna have to add on the solar at some point either way. So, whether it's another month from now, I don't think is gonna make or break it, but we can't go out too far because it takes so long to get this stuff done that
Right.
I'm gonna get it back until February at this point.
I really think that we should approve the appraisal proposal we have and continue to see the solar appraisal as a separate entity.
John, your thought?
Yeah, I'm okay with doing a supplemental. We're doing it on the first appraisal, we're supplementing that original one for the solar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually making them consistent.
Right, and then, but we have at least an estimate on the price for that one.
Sure.
The second one, we don't really have an estimate for yet, right?
Right.
And I guess, Joan, is that your concern that we don't know what that once we go ahead with this appraisal,
Right.
we don't know what
Well,
the second piece is gonna cost?
So we don't know what the additional fee will be from them. We also don't have a good handle on what the timeline is for Liberty to turn over this information as well. So,
So the solar appraisal piece is complicated and clearly an issue, but we've been trying and trying to get an appraisal company to appraise the real estate. And we finally have one to give us a second real estate appraisal. And I think that, the solar is not on any of the buildings we're thinking of taking down. And I think that we really can separate them. Go ahead and get a second real estate appraisal and then get 2 solar appraisals down the road. And if we don't like the price of the appraisal company of New England, I was proposing to DHCD that we just get 1 solar appraisal and, look at both real estate appraisals and then the solar appraisal. And she wasn't clear that that was a problem.
Yeah, I'm just to weigh in on that too. It's been very difficult to find someone. That's why it's taken so long to actually do the appraisal. So to not move forward, we can talk about time and delay, but we may never get somebody to come back and when we need them. Is that fair to say, Sarah? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel enormous
disagree with that.
pressure.
I disagree with that.
Okay. All right. Well, I know what Sarah's been doing, trying to get an appraisal, and it was difficult to get someone.
So Sarah, do we have? So have they given you the bid amount yet?
Yeah. I thought you got, didn't you get the
I'm sorry,
proposal?
my bad, my bad.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have the proposal. It's a really good proposal. It just doesn't even contemplate the solar piece.
That's it. Yeah,
So are they willing to do the solar piece?
They are willing to do it.
To do it. Okay.
And
We
they,
just-
They know how to do that, Sarah?
prior to making a comment,
Run-of-the-mill
make
appraisers,
sure,
the run-of-the-mill
John.
appraisers know. how to do a solar.
John, before making the comment, mention who you are before making the comment, that's all.
Yes, Johnny Erickson.
Yeah,
Sarah, are they able to do an appraisal? A solar appraisal? I mean, are they qualified to do that? Did they say?
yes,
Yeah?
they are.
Okay.
So Sarah, is their quote including the solar appraisal?
No, it's a high quote and it doesn't include the solar appraisal.
There's no way I'm voting for this. That fee is outrageous.
It seemed high, but it's a very complicated site.
Sarah, we just got one done for considerably less
Yes,
money.
I agree.
So I'm not, I won't agree with this one.
okay.
I don't know that I can find another appraiser, but I'll keep trying.
Any other comments?
Ann Keen, do
Yes,
we
Ann.
want to table this to next month? Are we able to hold their proposal till next month? And in the meantime, have Sarah see if she can find anyone else that would be interested in looking at it?
We can do that. Another caveat to that is we know that we're gonna need the solar component.
Right.
Do we wanna move forward with Churchy to do the, and I'm just talking, not in the form of a motion, to do the solar component? Do we want to entertain that? Any discussion on that?
I think that in the meantime, I would like to have John talk with Peter Salino and let's move forward and get all of that solar information that we're gonna need for
There you go.
any appraiser at this point.
That's the answer.
So at
Yep.
least let's not waste time. I mean, we're gonna lose next week, let's face it. There's not gonna be much of anybody around.
Right.
But in the meantime, let's push forward and get all this information on the solar park.
Okay. Understood.
Joan, do
So-
you think that I can find another, when I talked with Ken about it, we agree, it's a really high bid, but nobody else will even do it. They just keep saying it's too complicated, we have too much work, we don't want to do it. And I thought Churchy's bid for how much work it was, given that we're asking for 3 separate scenarios of value with 1 building taken down, 2 buildings taken down, 3 buildings taken down. It makes it a complicated appraisal for an already complicated site with all this environmental contamination they have to take into account. And I've gone to many companies, companies that Beta thought would do it. And I actually do have another strategy I can pursue, but I just don't know that we're gonna find another company willing to do it for much less.
I would entertain a vote that we table this discussion
Okay,
pending John's response from Peter Salino and whether or not we can get the data that we need. Because what I'm hearing is we're pretty far out there, and based on what even Ann said, that just moves the timeline further down. So that's my thought process about tabling this for now, giving you a very little time to see if there is somebody else out there. But in the meantime, trying to work on that solar component. Is there any discussion about my thought? And Joe, Johnny, Joe.
I concur with Joe's thoughts at this point.
Ann?
Yeah, this is Ann. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is if we find somebody else that doesn't do the solar, do we have the option of not just doing that solar appraisal, part of the appraisal? I know John was suggesting we should for DHCD, but it's also sounding like we might not have to. So just trying to make sure that we've got everything that's, apples to apples between the appraisals. But that piece I know was not part of it when Sarah was originally looking just for,
Correct.
and it may make it more difficult if we're trying to look for both those pieces, the real estate appraisal and then the solar appraisal from another company. Do we want to entertain that we may not need the solar appraisal part?
For both of them.
What's
For
that?
both of them.
I think to do that, Sarah, we'd have to have, and I'll join you if you want, we'd have to have a follow-up call with Maggie at DHCD. And I'd want some written assurance from them that they'll accept it without that, because if
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
go down this road and next summer we're submitting 2 appraisals to close and DHCD suddenly says these are not acceptable, now we're all the way back to the beginning.
Right.
So I'd want something confirmation from them.
And I
Yeah,
think,
correct.
I get the sense that commercial appraisers would typically do these solar appraisals.
Yep.
So I don't think that's the problem.
So if we're gonna delay, Sarah, can you just get me a list of what
Yep,
the appraisers need, and I'll follow up with Peter, and then we'll take
Right.
it up in January if that's what
Okay.
we want.
right.
All right, so after this discussion, we'll table and hopefully bring up again in the January meeting. The next item is approval of the city pier construction requisition number 2. Everyone did receive a copy of that.
Yep.
And I would entertain a vote to approve the MAS Building and Bridge City Pier Construction Requisition number 2.
Joan Maderis, I
Erickson, I move we approve.
All
second.
right. Who's, Johnny, you want to mention your name?
Yeah, John Erickson, I move we approve.
Okay, is there a
The,
second?
Joan Maderis, second.
11-12.
All in favor, roll call, Joe Marshall, yes.
Joan Maderis, yes.
And Keen, yes.
Johnny Erickson, yes.
Thank you, so moved. Next item is to the approval of the city pier change order for installation of a water meter enclosure.
So I talked,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
talked about the water meter enclosure, the 2 of them that we need at the end of the piers at a previous board meeting. When I got information from MAS, I thought that we needed to make a decision about that as soon as possible, but Beta said, since I sent out the agenda, that they still are reviewing the proposal, that it looks as though it won't go in until later anyway, maybe in the spring. So there isn't a hurry to make a decision on it. The proposal we got, however, is 35,000, and I just want to make sure that the board is agreeing that in principle, we're going to go ahead and have these water meter enclosures put in because of the requirement that we have water meter backflow meters. And we won't actually have to incur an additional expense of the full 35,000 because we'll get a credit for the work that was going to be done for the simpler water solution. And so we probably only are adding 25,000 to the construction contract. But I just wanted to review that. We're going ahead, they're looking at the proposal, but, and I'll bring you a final change order, but I wanted to make sure that we had agreement to go ahead and pursue this change order.
Any questions or discussion?
I think it's reasonable, especially
Yeah.
based on the prior discussion at last month's board meeting.
Good point. Any further questions or discussion on item number 4? Hearing none, is there any other business prior to adjournment?
Johnny,
Johnny?
Oh, no, I was just gonna, John Erickson, I was just gonna say, Joe, that I agree with that, with the water meters as well.
Okay,
I think it needs to get.
Yeah. okay. All right, we're good. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
so move. Joan Maderis.
Joan Madeira, second.
Johnny Erickson, second.
Johnny Erickson. All in favor, Joe Marshall, yes.
Joan Maderis, yes.
Ann Keen, yes.
Johnny Erickson, yes.
Okay, so moved. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas.